Good
What a
morning
broadcast.
and welcome to ASL's HR in 10.
At 10,
I'm Jason Perry,
and I'm Kimberly Bradshaw.
and I think we caught Kimberly slightly unaware there. We were about to go live. Apologies for that, for not giving you the countdown, Kimberly.
Yeah, where was my countdown?
We like to keep you on your toes just to prove we're live. So, every Thursday, Kimberly and I get together over the air, over YouTube. One of these days, we'll actually do it in a real room, sitting together and talk. But
I was thinking about that yesterday, actually.
we should, as the world gets a bit safer. But we do this each week, and we talk about what's going on in the world of employment and human resources. I kind of think, Kimberly, that the budget has to be the starting story of the day.
Rude not to.
It would. I mean, most of it we knew was coming. It's probably the most briefed budget I think we've known in modern history, and the deputy speaker actually introduced it and basically told him off before he did his budget for actually having briefed so heavily. And then I think invited him to, you may now like to tell us the bits we don't already know or something, was the introduction to the Chancellor. But the big bit has to be the minimum wage. We knew it was coming, but we're looking at £9.50 from April next year, which, if I recall correctly, is 6.6% increase.
I think so. And it's only for the over 23s, of course, as
Yes.
well.
Clearly, in the book that has all the detail, we will see over the coming days the additional details, and I'm sure there will be increases for the other age groups, apprentices, and so on and so forth. But right now, we know that lead headline figure is £9.50. It's quite a big increase again, isn't it, Kimberly?
It is. I think it's brilliant, and it's very important that people on low salaries are paid better to make life more affordable. But as we were talking about as our HR forum yesterday, there are companies that aren't going to be able to afford this.
Yes.
So I have mixed views. I'm absolutely behind it, but equally I know that there's going to be a lot of employers that are in small businesses who are really going to struggle with the increase.
Yeah, to me, one of the really big factors is not just the headline rate of what's the minimum wage. It's always what are the next tiers up on your company structure. If you've currently got people who are earning £9.60, £9.70 an hour, who currently think they're paid considerably more than the minimum wage, what are you going to do with those people? And in all probability, they're not going to get a 6.6% pay increase, are they?
No, not at all. I mean, especially when the figures for average increase is what, 3.2
3.5, I think it was so far, yeah.
Yes.
And the difficulty there I see for employers is, how do you keep offering your people promotion prospects, opportunity for development and to grow, if actually what you've done is just compressed all those lower jobs so the salary differential doesn't exist anymore?
And it's also all the additional on costs that you get from employment, the national insurance and the tax, and it's not just the £9.50 that the employer has to pay, which yes, that's as it should be, and that I'm not complaining about that, but there's just more and more that employers need to be aware of and think about in order to put their picture together and what they're doing going forward.
Yeah. So be aware, as we head into next year, you need to plan for this. The end result is employment costs are going up. That will put, everything's going up, isn't it? It's just the phase we're at in the economy right now. The other bit that really caught my attention, and this was kind of hinted at, I don't know if you picked it up in the day or so before, but I did hear that the Chancellor was going to play with the taper relief on universal credit. We've had a big fuss about the £20 uplift that was given at the beginning of COVID and was then ended in September. Now, this one's always caused me a huge amount of difficulty, because on the one hand, I really, really don't ever want to see people, struggling, desperately in need, unable to feed them, their family, unable to heat their homes and so on. But we equally had a problem that universal credit was almost better than working on the lower roles. And how did we entice people back into work, didn't we?
Yes, well, again, on our forum over the months, we know many employers that have said they're not being able to put people in place because they earn more on universal credit than they do if they come to work, and they get other benefits on top.
Yes.
So, such as council tax and things like that. So, like you, I'm very split about this. I think we need to make the gap wider to encourage more people back into work, particularly given the skills shortage that we've got at the moment and the trouble people are having filling their roles. But at the same time, like it's terrible for individuals that are living on the poverty line and don't potentially have the opportunity to do anything about it for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think the kind of big challenge here, we've talked a lot over the past year about the Brexit impact and whether or not we have the cheaper labour. I don't think it's necessarily about cheaper labour, but I think there's a point that some of the European workers that would come over weren't ever thinking about universal credit and additional benefits, therefore just being in work paid for them. But for our own population, it was harder because the gap between benefits and work was tough. And the Chancellor's gone some way to address this. I think I'm going to say I think this is a really, really good move. I think it's the best thing in the budget yesterday. It's also the most expensive thing in the budget yesterday. I think it's something like 2.2 billion. And what he's done, he's reduced the amount of money that a worker loses as their wages go up, as they earn more money and ease out of universal credit. And there is this system called taper relief, universal credit taper, which did run at 63%. So for every extra pound a worker got, they would lose 63 pence in benefits. And he's reduced that. The suggestions were in advance that it might be reduced by maybe 3%, but he's reduced it by 8% to 55 pence in the pound. So obviously this means for every extra pound you get to keep 45 pence of it now. That, I think, is a huge step forward. In my mind, it doesn't go far enough, I have to be honest. And again, I'd probably like to see it gradually change. Maybe start at something like 30% and then go up to 40 and then up to 50 as the wages increase. Maybe as a way of easing people out of it. But I think doing something that starts to make work pay just has to be a good move, doesn't it?
It does, yes, and something more does need to happen because, as I just mentioned, once you come off universal credit, as I understand it, you lose council tax and other benefits that you then have to pay for, which it
defeats the object.
We need to change something, and this is a step in potentially the right direction,
yes.
But I think there's more to go.
Yes, no, I agree. I think there's more to go. What really caught my attention was when Rishi announced this, he stated that 55% was the level that Ian Duncan Smith had wanted when he developed universal credit, and it was George Osborne that blocked it and said, no, it needs to be higher. Which, given the flack Duncan Smith took for the way in which it was implemented, I thought was really quite interesting.
Yes, it's funny how these things come about.
It is indeed, it is indeed. Shall we continue talking about pay, but maybe move on to pay gaps?
Yes, I mean, as you know, I saw yesterday a report from the Office of National Statistics that said that the average hourly earnings between men and women had increased again, and it's gone from 14.9% to 15.4%. And whilst that is well below the figures from when all the equal pay reporting came through, it's still a bit of a worry. Obviously, what we don't know is, because it goes on to say about, it, was it last year? No, this year more men than women have been on furlough, but last year it was more women than men. So it might have increased the gap last year and made it smaller this year. So we're not quite certain where the stats are going.
That lovely thing with statistics where you can muddy them any way you want and not quite tell what they say.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics.
I thought it was lies, damn lies, and government statistics, but I'll. It's concerning that we still have this gap, and clearly we need to continue working towards it. I think it's terribly difficult to read into this year, as you say. What we've seen so far is, for example, the pay rises. We start arguing, are they big pay rises? Well, no, because they're compared to last year when loads of people were only on 80% pay. So I think this year's a really, really tough one to watch. Hopefully next year we get a bit more clarity on it. But I think, again, the direction of travel's right. It's just not fast enough, is it?
Yes, and for me it's about keeping it out there. In obviously being a woman, it's keeping the topic out there.
Yes.
And making sure that people are aware of it, and maybe in time we'll see the reporting extend to smaller organisations, which would help drive it. But
I'm not sure the smaller organisations. I'm not sure the smaller organisations would welcome all the extra ONS forms, though.
Well, no.
But on that note, kind of have to bring it to an end. HR in 10 has been about HR in 11 and a half, I think. So, as ever, it's been great. But for now, we shall wrap up and see you again same time next week.
Goodbye. See you next week.
Thanks a lot. Bye.